Hello, my name is Tatiana Pashkova-Balkenhol. I'm a librarian for instructional design, and I'm honored to introduce my Longwood colleagues, Emily Cox, librarian for instruction and research services, Dr. Heather Lettner-Rust, professor of rhetoric and professional writing, and Dr. Naomi Johnson, professor of communication studies. Today, we're going to discuss our interdisciplinary collaborative project, which was focused around the assessment of student blogging, the center of which was a blog rubric, which we developed to be flexible for customization and adaptation across various disciplines and levels. We will talk about the methodology of our study, discuss the assessment results, and we will conclude with pedagogical strategies for implementation of our blog rubric. Over the last 10 years, educational blogs have been used across disciplines for various pedagogical purposes in the higher education. Recent research documents many benefits of using blogging as an instructional technologies in teaching and learning. Academic blogs provide a medium for reflection and engagement with the course content. Blogging also can serve as a communication tool between students, allowing discussion of course content outside of the classroom. Also, research demonstrates the benefits of blogging as a means for developing learning community that extends beyond the classroom. In addition to the pedagogical values of course blogs, promoting deeper levels of reflection, engaged dialogue, constructive peer feedback, and collaborative learning, our institutional course blogging experiences suggest that this medium is particularly beneficial in helping students learn how to write in public and for a public audience. So let's talk about Longwood blogs. It is a web-based publishing platform that has been developed and sponsored by Greenwood Library, Information and Instructional Technology Services, and Public Relations. Officially launched in the spring of 2011, Longwood blogs originated as a brainchild of the University of Mary Washington blogging platform in 2007. As of today, Longwood blogs hosts over 1,800 blog sites and over 2,400 users and supports course blogging across disciplines and showcases academic research projects, scholarships, professional activities, and talents. Since the official launch of 2011 of Longwood blogging platform, librarians and teaching faculty have collected plenty of anecdotal evidence about the impact of course blogging on student learning. However, we have not implemented any formal assessment of Longwood blogs in regards to student learning in the areas of writing in public and for the public. So, we have launched over the fall of 2012 an interdisciplinary collaborative project with the following goals. The first one was to develop and test a blog rubric flexible enough to be adapted across disciplines and various levels. The second goal was to assess to what extent the blog rubric got integrated into student learning. And the third goal that I believe is going to be our next step for our study was to evaluate how well students performed in different levels by using the blog rubric. So now I'm going to turn over to Emily, who is going to provide us with a literature review and assessment methods of student blogs, particularly grading rubrics.
In the past several years, many in the academic community have started to address how to create rubrics and evaluation guidelines for student blogs. I'm going to cover a couple of concepts today from the scholarly literature that discuss implementing rubrics in an institution and creating a rubric for blogs. Please see the PowerPoint presentation for the complete citation. In regards to creating a rubric to evaluate writing or speaking, Anson, Daniels, Flash, and Housley-Gaffney believe that rubrics should be constructed while considering the institution's local conditions, which are the linguistic, rhetorical, relational, and contextual characteristics of writing and communication found in higher education. When evaluation tools reflect local conditions, they incorporate disciplinary nuances that help instructors shape performance criteria tailored to their own assignments, which generic campus-wide rubrics fail to reflect. Similar to the point the authors argue in this article, Dr. Lettner-Rust and Dr. Johnson created a flexible cross-curricular blogging rubric for both first-year English composition students and upper-level communication studies students. This rubric was developed with each course goal in mind, with the finished product a reflection of specific assignments throughout the semester. A fundamental question many faculty have about assessing blogging is how to create evaluation standards that reflect the dynamic nature of a blog. Olafson, Lindberg, and Haig used Fostati, Young, and Wilson's ICE, Ideas, Connections, and Extension model to create a blogging assessment in an online higher education course. The authors applied this model to their specific class needs in regards to blog posts, commenting, and peer-to-peer evaluation. The blogging rubric that our group created also incorporate the differences between the traditional paper and blogging, where students can update posts and publish them in real time, add various multimedia elements to posts, and moderate comments made by students, faculty, and members of the community outside of Longwood. Now Naomi is going to tell us about our methodology.
So in order to find out how students in different disciplines at different levels would be able to use this rubric, we decided to look at two different courses. One of the courses is an English composition course that was a 100 level, and the other course was a 300 level communication theory course. So we had very different course levels and content, since we're really interested in finding out if the same rubric can be adapted to go across different types of disciplines. As far as the methodology we used, we surveyed these students and we had about a 50% response rate. The students were surveyed on 3 different areas. First, they were surveyed on to what extent, meaning how thoroughly did they actually read the rubric. Also, along with that, we looked at when did they read that rubric. So did they do it at the beginning, before they started writing, during the writing process, or at the conclusion, or a combination of all 3 of these? The second area that we looked at in the survey was assessing what the students thought of the rubric. Were the requirements clear? And did they actually help them write the blog? The third area we evaluated was looking at how blogging overall influenced student learning in the course. We wanted to look at how it helped them in that particular class, but also did they extend beyond that to learning outside of the classroom, to apply this knowledge in other areas of their life, from the classroom to their personal life. So those were the 3 areas that we surveyed in our work. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Heather Lettner-Rust, and she's going to talk about the results of the survey.
Our questions fell into 3 areas of inquiry: student use of the rubric, student perception of the rubric, and students' perception of the LAE method of analysis. What you'll see is a favorable response by the students in all 3 areas. The more incremental divisions of ratings can be seen in a closer viewing of the slides and the material later. Today, I'll cover the areas of larger favorable responses. Our first question, as you can see, was whether the students had viewed the rubric at all. An overwhelming percentage had viewed the slide at some point during the course. Only 2% said no, and 4%, the 4% you're not seeing, didn't answer the survey question. The next sections of the slides parse when and how the students viewed the blog, and I'm going to combine some of the bigger response rates. We asked what way best described how they viewed the rubric, and the largest percentage, a total of 75, viewed it before and during the creation of their blog. This suggests the rubric was a guide to their writing and design of the blog rather than something extra or inconsequential to their learning or our teaching. We asked them how they viewed the slide, We asked them how they viewed the rubric before the creation of their blog, and 54% scanned it for general ideas, read some of it with care, or read it all carefully. During the writing, 50% of them scanned it for general ideas, read some of it with care, or read it all carefully. After they finished the blog, the percentage increased actually from the last question, and 62% of them scanned it for general ideas, read some of it with care, and read it all carefully. This next series asked the students' perception of the rubric. Black and light blue in the bar graph are favorable responses of agreeing and strongly agreeing. As you can see here by looking at the black part of the bar graph and above, a majority found the rubric fair, with clear language, and having criteria related to important features. The responses here are not as favorable, but when compared to the last categories, but still a majority agreed or strongly agreed with each category on this graph. And I'll read them in order. They agreed that the rubric influenced their work in that they wrote clearly and concisely. It helped them with proofreading and editing. It helped them with organizing their work. And finally, the rubric helped them to meet the assignment requirements. This next question asked them about the blog specifically, as we wondered about their understanding of the blog's broader purposes. Of the 4 questions we asked, 2 showed the most favorable response. Students agreed that the blog helped them build a digital identity and that the blog was important for their professional growth. The final 2 slides asked students about the Lee method, which was a way to name the rhetorical moves in their analysis: label, explain, and example. We asked if they used it in other classes. 42% said they hadn't, which is understandable because a full third of the participants were first-year students. The rest were upperclassmen. A little under 60% said they had used it in other classes. This suggests the method translates to other disciplines or subsets of their own discipline. And finally, we asked the students if the Lee method helped them in their current class. A majority found the Lee method helpful in each facet of their work. It helped them to write clearly and concisely, to understand some of the course material, to organize the content of their writing, and to present analysis and other assignments. And now to Dr. Naomi Johnson to present our conclusions from this study.
So now that you've heard a little bit about what we found out with the results of our study, we want to talk to you about how you can actually adapt this rubric for use in your own class. Because we created this so that it could be an interdisciplinary tool that, regardless of what field you're teaching in, you would be able to use this rubric. If you want an electronic copy of this rubric, we would be happy to provide that for you. Just contact us and we'll email it to you. You'll notice that some of the writing in the rubric is in blue. What you're seeing here is actually the very first category of the rubric. There are several categories that correspond with different elements of the blog. So we're going to start out looking at this rubric piece by piece. And I want to point out that wherever you see blue writing, it's something that we believed you might want to customize to your particular course goals and needs. So this is a very nice template for you that you can easily adapt to your own class. At the beginning, I also want to point out that the goal in writing a blog is different than writing a paper, and that you have to consider a broader audience than just your professor. This is a real advantage for you as a professor because students have an intrinsic desire to go perhaps a little bit further than they would in a paper. In a paper, they know that you as a professor will see it and maybe some classmates. And for some students, that may not be as much motivation as thinking about this as a public document where I as a student can demonstrate my ability to analyze using material from our discipline to future employers and to potential graduate schools. And so by gearing this toward a broader audience, students can see that it goes beyond just the immediate understanding of class material onto something that will help them in the future as they graduate. This has the ability to create stronger work, which of course makes it easier for you as a grader as well and much more gratifying. So as we go through each of these categories, just bear in mind that the audience is a broad public audience beyond the classroom. So this should have been written for someone who is educated, but not necessarily an expert in this field. The very beginning of the rubric, which we're looking at here, is the introduction. This is, of course, if you're thinking about a broader audience, just like you might not read every single news article that you see or every single internet post that you see, you want to train the students to be thinking about trying to draw in a future graduate school evaluator or a future job employer. You're trying to draw in your interviewer where he's going to hire you. What you are doing is try and make them interested and keep reading this post. Why should they care about developing the introduction? You'll evaluate, that's the first element. The second element of the rubric is to put this issue in context. So we've labeled that building curiosity in context, and this is where you can choose an instructor how you want them to develop this. Basically, how is this phenomenon that they're writing about, how is it occurring in the world? Why is it important? In some cases for my classes, I will have them draw from news sources and from other popular press sources in order to contextualize this and explain why it's important. The next element of the rubric, which would be a corresponding part of their blog, I consider this the heart of the blog. This is where they consider where they will be able to demonstrate their ability to take whatever class material that you've decided to emphasize as the focus of this blog assignment, but they will be able to take these theoretical constructs and break it down into a form of analysis that, again, an outside audience can understand. But what this does for you as an instructor is it gives you the ability to know that, yes, they really truly understand this, because if you can explain this theoretical construct and give examples in a way that someone who's not an expert in the field can actually understand it, then I, as the instructor, know that you, the student, truly understand it. But for the student, again, it gives them the ability to think about how can I use my ability to analyze using discipline-specific knowledge to show that I am someone you might want to hire or allow into your graduate school program. This LEE, or the Label, Explain, Example method, that is something definitely that you can adapt to your own classes. The final element of writing the final component that would be in the blog would be the conclusion. And this is, again, keeping in mind that there is an outside audience. Now that I have told you about the situation that is occurring, I have contextualized it and I've analyzed it using discipline-specific knowledge, I'm going to conclude with something that tells you, why does this matter? Why should we care? What can we draw from this? There are 3 other elements of the rubric that go beyond actual sections of the blog. So what we've done so far is we've provided a template, a model through this rubric so that students know what the different elements of the blog there should be in there. But beyond that, we're looking at some of the ways that you can make it more appropriate for the blogging platform itself. So part of that is digitally, have they represented this? You can decide, again, this is customizable. So do you want to have particular graphs or charts? Do you want pictures? How is it that digitally we are making this appealing to the audience? And then also things as well that the blogging format has to have smaller paragraphs. It tends to have more headings and subheadings. It should be easily linkable. People should be able to scan it and be able to quickly tell what the main points are and not have giant blocks of text everywhere. A second key area that you can evaluate on, of course, is the sources, on the way that they are cited. Again, this is customizable for you. You can decide what type of sources and how many. And then finally, overall, do you evaluate this blog looking at it as a whole? There is an area that you might want to choose to create deductions if there's something that you think, well, this is so standard you shouldn't earn points for it. For example, if you think something should be spelled, or everything should be spelled correctly, written grammatically correct sentences, and then maybe you think, well, that's not something necessarily you should earn points for, but you're not performing at the basic college level, so there's going to be points deducted for it if you don't do those things. So as you can tell, this rubric is very customizable so that you can adapt it to your own specific discipline's need for the level of students that you're looking at. And it's something that I hope you're able to use so that students can use it as a tool to create better blogs, which is certainly what our own students that we have surveyed demonstrate that they felt it was doing. It also will help you as an instructor to ensure that you are fairly and consistently evaluating work and making clear what your expectations were for the students. So in conclusion, the purpose of this study leads us to create an interdisciplinary rubric for students that would be beneficial to both the students and to the instructor. And what we found was that this gives the students the tool to better understand class material and to better understand how to write in a blogging platform. I hope you will join us in developing a more interdisciplinary work so that we can cross those silos and gain from each other's knowledge. And once again, I would like to thank the collaborating team who put this rubric together and did the research: Dr. Heather Lettner-Rust, Emily Cox, Tatiana Pashkova-Balkenhol, and myself, Dr. Naomi Johnson. Thank you so very much.